Stay with us. We are also joined by Manjinder Singh Sirsa on the phone line. Mr. Sirsa, absolutely unfortunate news coming in, and also we have a confirmation from our eyewitness sources that possibly the guard of this particular Gurudwara has also now been killed.
No, that's true. जो यहाँ पे guard थे, he belongs to a Muslim community and he was a guard चौकीदार outside the Gurudwara who was assassinated. उसको सुबह ही जब ये अटैक किया उसी वक्त मार गया था. अभी तक 3 लोग जो बाहर निकले थे उनमें से एक जो काफी जख्मी हैं और उनको हॉस्पिटलाइज्ड किया गया है. त्रिलोक सिंह एक हैं और एक रघुवीर सिंह है और एक और रघुवीर सिंह है. तो अभी ऐसा माना जा रहा है कि 2 लोग अभी जब मैं आपसे बात कर रहा हूं तो मुझे अभी उन्होंने मैसेज वहां अफगानिस्तान से भेजा है कि 5 लोग कुल अब बाहर आ गए हैं और 3 लोग अभी भी और अंदर माने जा रहे हैं कि 3 लोग अभी और अंदर हैं. ऐसा भी उन्होंने अभी मुझे बताया कि शायद 2 तालिबानी जो ये दहशतगर्द थे इनको वहां की पुलिस ने 2 लोगों को मारने में कामयाब हुई है. और वो लोग जो बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट किया था उसमें खुद को उनकी हताहत हुए हैं, ये कैसे हुए हैं, लेकिन 2 लोग ऐसा माना जा रहा है कि उन लोगों ने, और ये जो बाहर पुलिस थी इनमें से 3 लोगों को भी गोलियां लगी हैं. तो वहां पे गन फायरिंग चल रही है, निरंतर वहां पे गोलियां चल रही हैं अभी भी.
जी, और सिरसा साहब, एमईए की तरफ से भी एक स्टेटमेंट जारी किया गया है जहां पर अरिंदम बागची का स्टेटमेंट है. They are deeply concerned. All right, we'll try to go back to Mr. Sirsa once again. But Pradeep, the MEA statement clearly states that they are concerned at the reports emanating from Kabul about the attack on the sacred Gurudwara in the city, and they are closely monitoring the situation and waiting for further details to unfolding developments. What can be the possible next step for India at this point?
Definitely, see, if you go through the statement, that clearly indicates the government of India is really concerned about the development, because in the past also we have seen that whenever the Sikhs or the minority community members, they have faced any kind of a problem, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has always tried to ensure that they are brought back to India. And we saw that last time how the Sikhs along with the Guru Granth Sahib came over to this place in a special flight that was arranged by government of India. This time also the first country everybody looks towards is like whenever the Sikhs face any kind of a problem, they look towards India. And this time also there was an SOS from the Sikh community towards Indian government that do something to help them out, because right now the ISIS terrorists have gone inside. They are there to target Sikhs. They do not want to see their footprints. And now it's to be seen that how government of India is really going to pursue this matter, because over the period of time, if we look at the relationship, the way the government of India has tried to help the people in Afghanistan, I think that will be taken into consideration. Maybe that will help the government of India to get e-visas for these immediately e-visas for the Sikhs and ensure that they are safely brought to this place. But right now, see, focus is on the terror attack. Right now, everybody is concerned about that how many people are inside trapped, because as Sirsa was saying, Manjinder Singh Sirsa was saying that 3 people have come out, they are injured. And because their statement will matter, because they will let us know how many people are inside the Gurdwara Sahib right now. Because one thing is clear, whenever the terrorists march, in any of the Fedayeen or the suicide attack, the normal strategy is they target the guard or the santri who is there guarding that particular area where they try to enter. Here in this particular case also, there was a guard outside the Gurdwara. They first tried to kill him. After that, they barged inside the Gurdwara Sahib. Now it is not too clear whether they were wearing that suicide vest. They were wearing that explosive material, and it is because of that explosion that that smoke has started billowing out. The Gurdwara Sahib has caught fire. It is not clear. It will only be clear once the operation will be over. But right now, all I can say, the gunshots are being heard. Whether these gunshots are between the Taliban forces and the terrorists who are inside, or whether it's these firing by the terrorists inside, that's not clear. But yes, everybody is right now concerned about the Sikhs who were inside the Gurdwara Sahib. Their safety and security is important, because it was with an intention only to kill as many people as they can, because they know normally this is the time when the Sikhs are inside the Gurdwara Sahib and they're offering prayers, because the timing, look at the timing. It was the 6:30 a.m. Kabul standard time when they marched inside, and that means they must have done the recce of the area. They know that this is the time when most of the pilgrims are there to offer prayers, as this is a minuscule community. So very few people are there, but still 25 is a large number. If they were inside the Gurdwara Sahib, some of them managed to escape, some of them were still trapped inside. Now the things will get clear once the operation will be over. But yes, it's a matter of concern, and once again it points out one thing, and that yes, these Taliban, whether they are Taliban, whether it's Islamic State, whether it's any other terror organization, they are following only exclusivist agenda. The same exclusivist agenda what we saw in Kashmir back in 1990 when they forced about 5 lakh Hindus to abandon their huts and home. And we are seeing the same thing happening right now also. I think the people who were giving a clean chit to Taliban saying that they are the changed, transformed Taliban, they should take the word back, because we saw that exactly after taking over, they had desecrated Gurudwara Sahib in the month of October when some of the Taliban had gone inside. I think they have forgotten those visuals and those messages from the Sikh community at that point of time. And still the same thing is happening. It's not easy. They are being treated like second-class citizens. They are not getting that, and they are not treated equally. Because on one hand, when we talk about Islam, Islam believes in brotherhood and equality. But see, what the followers of Islam, those who say that they follow Islam, so what they are doing to the minority community member, they are not following what actually Rasul has said. They are not following what the Quran says. They are not following what Hadith says. They are simply here to kill minority.
Absolutely, Pradeep, and the situation still remains tense. And stay with us. Maharuf also now joins us live on this broadcast. And Maharuf, there are over hundreds of Sikhs who are still stuck in Afghanistan. They have been waiting for their visas to arrive, and they want now immediate evacuation and repatriation as far as Afghanistan is concerned, because since the takeover of Taliban, the situation for them has been fearful. They have in fact been tensed, and we have been speaking to people on the ground who also state that they do not know whether they will turn out to be alive by the end of all of this.
You see, there are three dimensions to what has just happened. The first is the situation on the ground and the fate of the people caught up inside the Gurdwara, either as hostages or caught up in the evacuation operation, which could lead to crossfire, and that in turn could lead to more lives lost. The second situation is that what they should have got from the Indian government in terms of visas to get into India, I cannot understand why there was this delay. I'm sure our intelligence agencies, whose job is to warn the government of the unfolding situation, would have done their homework and provided information about the risk to their lives. So why weren't visas given to them any earlier? And the third is, if they cannot be brought in quickly, what does the Indian government need to do in terms of engaging with the Taliban to ensure the safety of the people inside the Gurdwara and outside in Afghanistan, where there are small minority groups who are not wanted anymore by the militants and the jihadis who now rule the roost there. Two questions need answers from South Block, not from me or anybody else. It is very clear that we have gone slow on some issues, and we need to get rapidly activated if we want to save the lives of these innocents.
And Maharuf, if we specifically talk about the situation on the ground, and we have been speaking to certain reporters as well as leaders who have been in touch with the Gurudwara authorities and people as well. These are possibly gunmen who attacked the Gurudwara, probably from a group that are also rivals to Taliban. And they have possible linkage to the ISIS as well. And now the Taliban fighters and the police on the ground are also fighting them. What is the situation like? If you can also help our viewers understand this.
See, Afghanistan is a land where the gun rules the roost. This has been the case now for at least 3 decades or more, ever since the Russians left them. And the Pakistanis got in the local situation there. The American presence there did not help. In fact, it kept it equally in a mess from the time the Americans went in 20 years earlier, and then they pulled out in shame. As far as the inter-group rivalry is there is the desire on the part of the ISIS to have a completely hardline state, which is not in keeping with Quranic or Hadith edicts. Pradeep Datta brought it out very well. The Taliban, which pretends to be also a hardline group, does have a certain elements of moderates in it, but they are overall seen as unacceptable to the world community, despite the fact that the Americans engaged with them when it suited them to pull out of Afghanistan. Pakistan does have a role. Pakistan separate militant groups want to control Afghanistan, and so do groups that have some connections with Iran. Please understand, the other neighbor of Afghanistan is Iran,
Right.
which is also keen to play a dominant role in western Afghanistan, near Iraq and those areas. So therefore, there is intergroup rivalry and geopolitics playing out, not ruling out the possibility of China and Russia wanting to also play a bigger game there.
Right.
And the Americans are looking to re-enter Afghanistan, and therefore they have been reluctant to denounce Pakistan for all its acts of terror. So there are multiple dimensions to it. The Sikhs, unfortunately caught up in the Gurdwara, are pawns in a bigger game, and the bigger game is being played out by Islamabad and Kabul, because now there are differences between the Pakistani military and intelligence agencies that had installed the Taliban in Afghanistan, and the Taliban within Afghanistan who don't want to give them the Pakistanis a free hand to run Afghanistan. They say this is our victory, we
Right.
will do as it pleases. And the Taliban is being challenged by ISIS Afghanistan. So there are multiple layers of groups, and there are multiple layers of narratives in between. The innocents and minorities will become victims, sadly.
Absolutely. And stay with us, Maharoof and Pradeep. We are also joined by Puneet Singh of the IMF on this broadcast. And Puneet, multiple reports coming in. The situation still remains tense. Unfortunately, the entire premises of the Gurudwara, this is again supposed to be a high security zone in Kabul, which was set on fire. And there were multiple explosions that were reported between the cross battle of security forces and the militants that is still on. What can be the option for the Afghani Sikhs there now?
Well, I don't think so. We can call it anymore as a high secured zone. After the downfall of the government of Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, we don't perceive any high secured zone anymore in Kabul, because at the end of the day, the government is under right now Taliban. Taliban itself has leaders comprising of the most wanted terrorists like Anas Haqqani and Siraj Haqqani, who are all the most wanted terrorists of US and heavily being funded by ISI Pakistan. So at the end of the day, the situation on the ground is alarming. What today has happened in Kabul would have been avoided if government of India had processed the e-visas for the 156 Afghan Hindus and Sikhs who could not earlier come due to their personal reasons and were seeking and begging e-visas from government of India for the past 4 to 5 months. I am personally witness to the correspondences and the several applications sent by the Afghan Hindus and Sikhs to government of India. However, still, as I talk to now, there has been no commitment on the issuance of e-visas to them. Apart from this, today what all has happened up in Afghanistan, it clearly spells out the agenda of the Islamic State to prosecute the minorities.
Yes. And that's the unfortunate situation here, Puneet. And Pradeep, once again taking our viewers through the latest information coming in. Unfortunately, as we have been reporting, the entire premises of the Gurudwara on the 11th district of Kabul has been set on fire between the cross battle of security forces and the militants. Explosions have been reported. The main Darbar hall of the Gurudwara is also feared to be part of this explosion. Around 25 to 30 Afghan Hindus and Sikhs were also present in the Gurudwara for the morning prayers, with the entire incident and the attackers entered the premises, and 10 to 15 of them managed to flee away, but the rest are still feared to be trapped or possibly dead inside. Again, go back to Maharoof. And Maharoof, even as we are getting in more and more information that we are trying to gather from the ground situation, talking about the entire Taliban situation and how Taliban has also now faced a security threat from the Khorasan branch of ISIS, which has been active in Afghanistan since 2014, and how the UN had also taken cognizance of the matter as to how there have been multiple attacks in Afghanistan that claimed lives of numerous civilians. Among them were also members of the Hazara Shia community, and several children were also part of this.
Well, there is a certain centrality to the thesis of the ISIS that must be understood. They are completely hardline. They're intolerant, and they are even intolerant of other Muslim groups and bodies. Hazara committee you just mentioned, Hazara actually, they are all Muslims, but the Taliban lesser and more so the ISIS finds them unacceptable because the ISIS is driven by the Salafi ideology which small groups within Middle Eastern Islamic followers have, which is completely intolerant of any flexibility from the times of when Islam came into being 1400 years ago. So therefore, there will always be a rift between the ISIS and the Taliban, which has multiple elements to it. Pradeep brought it out. I've also mentioned that half the Taliban's cabinet itself is made up of people who do not follow the Islamic edicts and Islamic way, the way the ISIS would like them to follow. So there will be internal conflicts that will continue with or without Western or Pakistani interference. Pakistan only fuels the fire further. The second element is that in Afghanistan and in places where the ISIS earlier was active but now has been demolished, that was around Syria and northern Iraq, they have shown similar tendencies. Who created the ISIS? That question, the answer is a combination of hardline Saudis, Saudi intelligence, and the Americans. Today, the ISIS was planted as a counter to the Taliban. Whenever there are insurgencies and big powers play a role, they always create a counter which can put pressure on the dominant group in Afghanistan, that is the Taliban. So there are other trends and geopolitical pressures that will continue to play out in Afghanistan. In Pakistan, there has been also an increasing intolerance, and this is very visible, not just on attacks on Sikhs and minorities, though Pakistan harbors anti-India Khalistani groups, and we had seen them when the holy Gurudwara of His Holiness Guru Nanak Ji was open to the public and we could see it on television. There were anti-India Khalistani militants there in the crowd who were very visible and operate from there. But even in Pakistan, Sufi shrines, which have been there for centuries, and Sikhism has great linkages to Sufism, have been hit and targeted, and people have been dissuaded from attending those places for prayer or gathering or whatever else. So in the case of ISIS, very clearly, it is my way or no other way that we will tolerate. And the Taliban is also hardline, but it is less when compared to ISIS. And the Pakistanis are playing games simply to dominate Afghanistan because they feel the domination of Afghanistan will guarantee them strategic backyard, which will allow them to feel safe without being encircled by India from both sides. India really has a minimal footprint in Afghanistan now.
Right.
India has created a lot of goodwill with infrastructural development and financial assistance.
But will that
is
really
again
help,
something that
Maharoof? And let me also take across that question to Pradeep. Will that goodwill really help for India to bring back its minority community? And what can be possibly the next step for India? But we'll keep a close watch on that. Thanking both Pradeep and Maharoof for joining us here on this broadcast. Slipping into a short break, but we'll be back with the latest. Stay tuned.